In this video, we're going to dive into GitHub Projects, and I'm going to show you how you can use it as not just an individual user, but a team and even an organization to plan out your features and track your work. So we'll start by clicking the Projects tab. Now, projects actually exist outside of a repository, and they're basically used to collect issues from different repositories. So you can actually have issues from multiple repositories all aggregated into a single project. We're going to start out by creating a new project, and there are a bunch of different templates that you can start from. If we click View All here, you can see that there's Kanban, they have iterative development if you're doing Scrum. If you want to do higher level planning, you can start with the roadmap template. They even have a team retrospective template. But I'm going to start with just a simple board template from scratch. We're going to call this Real Picks. This is going to be for our specific project, like our team is working on developing this Real Picks application. So we'll save that, and we get this default view with the board that we're representing 3 statuses. Now if we come up here, we can look at our project settings. We can change the project name, add a description and a README. If we want to customize the project settings and things, we can then save it as a template so that we have a standard place to start from for new projects. You can change the visibility. By default, it's private. You can change it to public. We're just going to leave it as private. Then on the left here, you have a list of custom fields, and GitHub automatically creates status fields, the to do, in progress, and done that we got with this, as well as sub issues progress. When you can actually have an issue that has a list of sub issues that are linked to it, and then you can track the progress of those sub issues inside of the parent. And that's what this progress bar is for. And we'll see a little bit more of what that looks like later on. If you want to add custom fields for other attributes that you use for the issues that you work on, you can add those here. There are several different field types: text, number, date type. Single select lets you create a list of choices that you can select from one of, like the status, for example. Iteration, if you want to create sprints, then you can create a sprint custom field and set it up as an iteration type. So we're going to go back to our board, and we're going to take a look at this tab at the top that represents our current view. We can click on this icon to see what options are available. We can choose what fields are shown in the cards for each column. I'm actually going to come down and I'm going to add the type to this column, and it looks like there's a little bit of a bug with this menu that gets repositioned. We can see also, we can look at if the issue has a parent issue or a sub-issue progress. I'll also click on this parent issue, and we'll add that up here. If you want to remove anything, then you just click on it and it'll move it down here. So we'll put parent issue up here. The other thing that we want to do is we can actually rename this view. We're going to call this board. I'm going to click save. And that just saves the name. You'll notice this blue dot means that the additional settings that we changed, like adding these field types, that hasn't been saved yet. So if someone else were to come into this board right now, they would not see those additional fields until after we save our changes to this view. So I'll click save to lock those in. You can create other views. Table, roadmap are the 2 other options. I'm going to click table, and then I'm going to quickly rename this to table. If you want to add more fields, you can click this plus sign here. Again, I'll add type. You can also go up here and add fields the way that we did before. So parent issue, if we want to see who's assigned to it there, we can. What repository the issue might belong to isn't relevant in this case. So we'll click on save to lock those in. You can reorganize your columns. Just grab the column heading and move it over to wherever you want it. So we'll put the type over here. You can resize your columns, make a little bit more room, and then make sure you go up here again and save. So now that we have a couple of different views set up, we can start adding issues to our project. We click this plus icon. We can actually create a new issue, and you'll have to choose a repository that you want that issue to live in. Issues cannot exist outside of a repository. The only thing that can is if it's a draft issue. And depending on what your repository settings are, if you have additional issue templates or forms configured, for example, you can turn on feature request templates and bug report templates for your issues. Those will show up here. We don't have those set up, so we'll just go with the blank issue. And now you have this form that you can fill out to create your issue. You give it a title and a description. You can use these buttons along the bottom to assign additional attributes. If you want to assign it to someone, you can do that here. Any kind of labels that are in that repository. So if you have different labels set up for different repositories, then those will change depending on what repository you're looking at. The issue type, we'll click on this. This is a more recent addition to GitHub Projects that lets you define different types, whether it's a bug or a feature or a task. Epic is a type that's not included by default. This is something that I added, and I'll show you where I added that from. This is the project that we're adding this issue to, and then any milestones that are defined in your repository, you can add this issue to that or assign that issue to that milestone if you want to. If you just hit create, then this form will go away and we'll go back to the view here. And then you'll have to come in and click the plus sign to create a new issue again. But if you check this create more box, then as soon as you're done with this and you click the create button, you'll come back to this form immediately, and you can just keep creating issues, especially if you have a bunch to create that you want to create at once. Now, I've actually created a bunch of issues ahead of time, so I'm going to cancel out of this, and we'll click the plus sign and choose Add Item from Repository. You get a filtered list of issues, and right now we just have a single repository again, so I'm going to select all of these items and then uncheck that pull request at the bottom, and then add those to our project. So I'm going to close this, and there's this alert here that's telling us there's a workflow that's turned on for this repository or for this project, that when we have items with sub-items, then when we add the item, the sub-items come in automatically. We can see that 4 of these are set up as epics and 4 of these are set up as features. And if we look over here in this column, we can see that the parent issue for these 4 features is users, and that refers to this issue right here. So if we click on the users, we can see that those 4 issues are listed here in the sub-issues section. So I'm going to close that. If you want to remove an issue from your project, you can click on this menu here and delete it from the project. So it's only going to delete it from the project. It won't delete the issue itself. And we can prove that by going back to our repository and if we look at issues, we can see that we still have all 4 of our epics here. So I'm going to go back to projects, go into real picks, and back to our table view. And I'm going to remove all of our epics from this project. If we actually click on the number, we'll select the row and you can hit delete to delete the item from the project as well. And it looks like I picked the wrong one. So we'll go here and delete that epic. So this I accidentally deleted, and we can get that back by just clicking the plus sign and adding from the repository and selecting that feature again, and that was registration. So we'll select that and we'll add it back into our project. And there we go. Now in this view, you can reorder things. You just grab the number and you move them up and down to put them in whatever order you want. So authentication, profiles, invitations, registration, we can move up to number 2, profiles and invitations. So that all looks good. And since we have this parent issue column over here, we have a link to that user's issue that we can see. But then the other thing that we can do is if we go back to our projects view, let's create a new project, set up a board, and we will call this Turtle Stack Planning. So we'll click this plus sign and choose Add Item from Repository. I know that our first 4 epics are users, scoring, movies, and contests. And we'll add the selected items to this project. And I'm going to close this. And you'll see that this workflow ran again. So let's go into the project menu and we'll click Workflows. And we'll find that one, Auto Add Sub Issues to Projects. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to turn this off because we don't want that. Then we'll come back out and I can select all of these. We can delete these 4 objects from the project. Now we're back to just our epics here. So let's go and update some of the fields that we want to see. We want to see the type and we want to see the sub-issue progress. We can rename this to epics and save that. So now for this user's epic, we can see that we have 0 out of 4 sub-issues, and we can see the progress of those as they're completed. Then these will light up and you can see what the progress of this epic is as the sub items are updated by the team. So I'm going to save this so we keep these changes around. All right, so now that we have our epics here in our project, let's move our users over. We're going to get started with that. And then if we click on users here, we can see here's our authentication issue. We can click on that to get its details. And we can actually change the status of this to in progress from here. But there's also a link back to our RealPix project. So I'm going to click on that to take us back here to our team project. And I'm going to point out that we have this column here called no status. This is like, if you're used to working in Jira, this can be considered your backlog. But let's just say that we want this board view to only include work that we're going to be working on for the current sprint. Or, maybe we've got a ton of things in our backlog, and in this view, we only want to focus on things that we're going to be working on in the immediate future. So one thing that you can do is we can create a filter. We want to filter off of the status. And specifically, we want to filter off of no status. So this builds our filter for us, and you'll see that we can see them. If we want to hide them, then we can just come to the beginning of this and add a minus sign. And now it has completely hidden that column, and all we have is to do in progress and done. So we can save that for this view. And if we go over to our table view, we can see that the features are here. And actually, we can rename this view our backlog. This is the view we can use to add those or create them. And then we can do, if you want to do your sprint planning to determine what's going to be worked on for the upcoming sprint, then you just come in here and you can add them to the to-do list. So we'll add authentication and registration to the to-do list here. And when we come back to the board, we can see that those now display here. Another view that you can set up, especially if you're working in a team, is we'll create a new view that only displays work that you're assigned. So we have these 4 issues, and only 2 of them are assigned. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to create another filter, and we're going to click on Assignee, and then you can click this option, Me, and that's just whoever the signed in user is. And let's change the name of this view to My Work. We can save that, and we can actually change it if instead of looking at a table, you'd rather look at it as a board. We can change the view to the board view and then save it. And now when individual team members come in, they can click on this tab and they can see just the things that they're assigned and that they're working on. So I would come in here and I could say, okay, I'm going to start working on authentication, so I'm going to move it over here. Now we've taken a look at GitHub Projects, and you can see a little bit about how you can work with it from a team level as well as from an organization level. This is really just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many more things that we can look at. So that wraps it up for this video. And in the next one, we'll actually get started by creating some user authentication for our application.